Hey, language people, how's it going? I hope you are doing very, very well on this fine Friday afternoon or whatever day and time it is for you right now as you're watching this video here. Welcome to episode number 51 of Azren's Journal. If you are not familiar with this series, it is pretty straightforward. This is the segment on my YouTube channel where I share my personal language learning journey and, of course, give you guys a whole bunch of different language learning tips. I have a lot of stuff I want to share today, but I don't have a lot of time to share it. I have roughly 10 minutes, so we're going to dive right in and get right to the point. I want to talk about, first of all, I want to talk about dreaming in other languages. I'm surprised I've never actually talked about this before. It's such an interesting topic, and it's something that I've thought about before, but I think in the hundreds of videos that I've made and the hundreds of podcasts and the maybe thousands, I don't know how many posts I've made on other social networks, on Instagram and Facebook and all sorts of places, I don't think I've really ever talked about it prior to this moment here. So there's a couple of points I want to make. So I've heard people say that when you dream in another language, that's when you know that you're truly fluent. And I actually think that this is a big myth. I don't think it's true that when you dream in another language, that is when you're really fluent in that language. I don't think there's a direct link there, because I can tell you, at least from my personal experience, I've had dreams in French, I've dreamt in Spanish, I've dreamt in Mandarin. I don't think I've dreamt in Gujarati before, not that I can remember, but definitely French, Spanish, Mandarin, without a shadow of a doubt. And I've dreamt in those languages when I wasn't necessarily super fluent in those languages. The most memorable example I can share was about four or 5 years ago. I was in China, and while I was there, I was not in China. I was in Canada. What am I saying? I was still in Canada. I had a dream one night where I was in China, and it's very trippy and very weird, but my dream, that was only one dream, lasted a whole year. It was a dream that lasted for a year. Meaning in my one dream, in one night when I'm sleeping, my dream, like I would go to sleep and wake up in my dream, and it was a very odd experience. It was very disorienting waking up. But regardless, that dream was in China. I was in China for that dream. I would go shopping. I would communicate in Mandarin. Granted, in the dream, if I remember correctly, the details are quite fuzzy. If I remember correctly, I was not super fluent per se, but I was communicating, I was talking to people, and here's the catch. I could barely say hello in Mandarin in real life at the time. I was super early in my studies, and I didn't really know all that much at all. And yet, I had a dream that was in that language. So first of all, I think it's important to realize that just because you have a dream in another language, it does not mean that you're fluent or you're getting fluent. Not really, actually. In fact, I'm going to make an argument here that in our dreams, maybe it's just me and some of the people I've met, I'm actually curious in the comments or live chat for the people watching this here, I'm curious if you guys have had this experience. I find that in dreams, I'm way more fluent than I am in real life. I actually wish in the dreams I've had that in real life, I'm that fluent when I actually communicate in real life. I don't know why that happens, but it's one of those things. Changing gears a little bit, still on the topic of dreams, but just going on a slight tangent, which I believe is very interesting. I have some of the most fantastical dreams ever, like very mystical and just odd and weird, like very just different dreams in comparison to anyone I've really talked to in real life. So I've got a buddy whose dreams are very mundane. He literally told me his dreams are like, he'll go to the grocery store, buy some bread, buy some milk, go through a day, and then wake up in real life. Very normal kinds of dreams, very day-to-day with lots of day-to-day activities. My dreams are not at all like that. I had a dream where this is a crazy one. I had a dream where I met a girl who was an Amazon delivery girl. I ordered something on Amazon. I went to go pick it up. We started talking, and then we exchanged numbers, and I started dating this girl. She was my girlfriend. It was one dream, lasted a few days. I woke up genuinely believing that I actually had a girlfriend and being like, oh yeah, I met that Amazon girl. Yeah, that's so cool. And it was only about half an hour later when I realized, wait a second, did that really just happen? Huh. And then I looked at my phone and the message history wasn't there. And I was like, oh no. Another random dream. I had this one last night. This is the last night dream I had. I dreamt, again, details are a little fuzzy. I was going, I believe it was Canada to France. No. I think it was Canada, France, and France to Uganda, Uganda to India is what I thought I was flying in my mind. But for some reason, I was going to Uganda, but I actually forgot to book any flight going to India. Like I didn't have a flight booked or anything booked in Uganda. Nothing was booked. So that was weird. And then in my dream, weirdly, I was actually in Italy somehow. I was in Italy. And then my mom was apparently flying with me. And I was like, oh, mom's here. And then I was like, mom's like, yeah, look, we're in Italy. Look at that. It's a Leaning Tower of Pizza. I was like, oh my God. And from the airport, we can somehow see it. And I'm like, what? We're in Italy? And then I realized we're in a dream. And I was like, Mom, is this a dream? This has got to be a dream. I'm dreaming here. She's like, yes, Azren, we're both dreaming. We're in the same dream. And I was like, whoa, we're in the same dream? Wow, this is so cool. And then in my dream, I woke up, but I was still dreaming. And I asked my mom in my dream, still dreaming, but I thought I wasn't, hey, Mom, did you have that dream? She's like, no, what are you talking about? And in my dream, I thought, oh, man, I just had a dream. We didn't share a dream. That sucks. And then I woke up in real life thinking I talked to my mom about this dream, but then realized, wait a second, I think I was still dreaming. And I'm telling you, that dream, I could have a whole hour-long video about the weird dreams I've had. I'll tell one more quick story, then we'll move on topics. This is one of the top. There's two dreams I want to share. I'll share this one. What is one of the top 10 scariest dreams I've had? And it was a dream I had as a child. My grandparents' house transformed into like a haunted monster house. And I was in the house and there's like this green slime that was slowly going up in the house, and it would have drowned you if you stayed in the house. And there were monsters and all sorts of things. I was being hunted by like this black knight for some reason, but there's also a golden knight who was there kind of protecting me in the house. And I'm like hiding out, trying not to get killed. Somehow I escaped from the house. And I remember walking away from the house, like down my grandma's like road by in front of her house, walking away thinking, okay, my family's dead. Everyone's gone. Grandparents are gone. I guess I'm on my own now. And then I woke up in real life and I was like, whoa, top 10 like crazy, super scary dreams I've ever had. Oh my goodness. I still remember that one. So I can remember certain parts of the dream so vividly, like hiding behind the bed, the black disgusting monster thing is fighting with the golden knight. Like, wow, so weird. And as I said, I've had some weird ones. Anyway, changing gears, I've got about 2, 3, 4 minutes left before I have to leave. So let's just go very, very fast. I want to talk about another big language learning thing here, changing topics from dreams. Something I mentioned on my podcast today, by the way, follow the podcast, link in the description. The Language Learning Show is the name of it. Highly recommend you follow it. Obviously, I'm biased. It's my podcast anyway. And it's around cultural differences and cultural and cultural, I suppose you could say, friction, cultural friction, right? Things like when you talk to someone from a different country and you're trying to do business together, you're trying to work together, you're trying to build a friendship together, you're trying to date, you're trying to do something together, but you're from different countries with different cultures and different languages. I'm going to make an argument that while there are cultural differences, and while those cultural differences lead to culture shock, I agree. I think that's true. I think the equally strong factor, maybe perhaps even the bigger factor, maybe in certain circumstances, is language. I think the language barriers, even if you're pretty fluent in the language, is as important and as big of a factor, maybe bigger, than the cultural differences. I've had multiple personal experiences, and I've seen it happen with others too, where you are talking to someone, you're trying to work with them, you're trying to build a friendship, you're trying to do your thing, and there's a language breakdown, and the language breakdown creates a dissonance between you two. I can think of a reasonably recent scenario. I was talking to a group of people. We're talking in English, and I was getting very frustrated with these people. I was like, what is going on? You're not listening to me. You're not hearing me out. You're not answering any, like I say something to you and you completely disregard what I'm saying. You are not, I was getting so frustrated. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, I was genuinely getting like, it was frustrating me. And I realized while we're talking that we had a language in common, that I actually spoke their mother tongue. And I was like, oh, I speak your mother tongue. I hadn't like, it just hadn't clicked until partway through the conversation. And I was like, hey, should we just speak in like your mother tongue? And they're like, oh, you speak that language? I was like, yeah, I do. Absolutely, I speak it. Like, cool. So we switched over and instantly it was better. They were hearing me out. We were having conversations. It was more, they were being very kind. I was being kind. Like, it was way smoother. And that emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional turmoil or that frustration that I was feeling was immediately dispelled because we had a clear line of communication. We could clearly communicate. And I realized that, oh, they weren't ignoring me. They weren't understanding me. They weren't ignoring my questions. They didn't understand my questions. They weren't purposely speaking unclearly and talking to me in a way that I wasn't understanding and didn't really make any sense to me. Their English was not strong enough to communicate in the way that they would have liked to communicate. Because the moment we switched over to their language, they communicated very clearly, very concisely. It was a great conversation. It was fine. It was fantastic. And then it made me realize, oh yeah, that's a real thing. Even with me, there's been moments where I've been self-reflective and I'm like, in Spanish and French, where I'm very strong, where I've been talking to a native speaker, and in hindsight, I'll be like, if I were in the shoes of the native speaker, when I made that one comment, I probably would have felt like Azren was being kind of blunt or kind of heartless or kind of mean or kind of blah, 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 some negative thing, when that wasn't my intent. And it all stemmed from a very simple thing, a very simple root, which was that I wanted to say something. And in the moment, I couldn't quite find the exact precise words. So I settled for something that was extremely similar. But similar and exact and similar, when you find a similar thing you wanted to say, it's not exactly what you wanted to say. And in that little gap between the two, that's kind of where that's where someone can feel frustrated with you. They're like, why did you sound so direct? Why are you being so inconsiderate? Why aren't you hearing me out? Because maybe you heard what they said, you understood 80%, but you missed a couple words, you missed a small nuance, and you responded based on the 80% you understood, but it wasn't fully what they actually tried to say, and it led to a miscommunication. So that's a thing that these kinds of things happen. And yes, there's cultural differences that cause friction between people. That's a norm, that's a big thing. But when you've got the language there, you can communicate through those cultural friction points. Without the language, you have cultural friction points that you cannot actually communicate through, and you've now got language friction points on top of that. So it's a double whammy. Anyway, I've got to take off. I got to go teach soon. Thank you for watching. Appreciate your attention. And as per usual, we will talk very soon. Bye for now. See you.